Do you want to guarantee it on the before the pod section here? You getting a dub tonight?
Fuck no. I have zero faith.
Wow.
I mean, I really hope they are tuning into this podcast, but maybe they don't listen to that segment.
Yeah, you don't have to share this with them if you don't want to.
No, I have zero faith in our team.
In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.
That is my favorite sound on a podcast. I love hearing cans open. It's my shit. Like, not sarcastic. I love hearing that shit on a podcast.
And that's a shout out to Boofer. And welcome to District Divided, everybody. I'm Amit Singh. Matt is not here. One thing he's not doing is driving 10-2, but he is on vacation having himself a good old time. I'm joined by LC, K-Dot, and Oliver is back for a second straight week. How are you boys doing today?
Excellent.
We got an
Wow.
excellent, and great.
To be back.
Good to have you
Right.
back on. And so we're going to flash those dollar bet standings in a bit. Oliver did manage to get a dub in his debut, so we'll get into that. This episode, we're talking about Trinity Rodman. She is the future GOAT of U.S. soccer. I'm going to tell you why. We're then going to talk about the Euros because those games were crazy. Spain managed to grab a dub. France did not. So we're going to get into that. NBA playoffs, season's finally winding down. The Clippers made it interesting in their Game 5 performance against the Suns. We're going to see if that's still a series. And then, of course, on the other side in the Eastern Conference, are the Bucks just going to run away with this thing, especially with Trae Young hurting his ankle, stepping on the referee? And I'm curious to see your guys' take on that. And then this is a fun question for everybody, and I want you to think about it while we're talking about other stuff. What is the one sport you feel you could go pro in today? What is the one sport you feel you could go pro in today? We're each going to go around and give our answers, and then we're going to conclude with the State of the Union, your DC Sports wraparound coverage segment. But we are beginning with Trinity Rodman. Put some respect on her name. She is the best player. She's going to be the best player in U.S. soccer history, and I'm going to tell you why. She, youngest ever player drafted in the NWSL, youngest ever player to play NWSL, and in her last two games, in the 85th minute and the 95th minute, she has scored. So she gets better as the game goes on. The Washington Spirit are going to be a force to be reckoned with, and it's because of Ashley Sanchez, her running mate, and it's Trinity Rodman, just 19 years of age, and she's got it. You can tell she's got some swagger about her. She can use her left foot, her right foot. Brilliant technique. The IQ is there. So long as you stay humble, Trinity, the world is yours. It's at your feet. I am so pumped for the Washington Spirit, and I am so pumped for Trinity Rodman. I will field questions at this time to back this assertion, but Trinity Rodman's going to be the greatest, and I have absolutely no doubt about it. Just 19 years old.
I don't know if it's a question, but it's more. So we have some of the dollar bets we have will take about 3 years to pan out, right? Like
Yeah.
I think I have a longer one.
Okay. Let's get into it.
Because I want to know, does anyone believe that in her career, Trinity Rodman will have some crazy hairstyle like her dad did?
Oh, yes. I would say
think
yes.
so, yeah. I think she's going to lean into it at some point.
And-
it's like right now she's sort of establishing a name for herself. I mean, the Rodman thing, but because it's in soccer, there's not a lot of people making the connection
Right.
much. If she starts making a name for herself, I could see her lean more into it. As long as her dad just stays out of the limelight and don't do too many problematic things.
Okay, right. So, but I remember at some point there was like this story that like LeBron's kid named LeBron Jr. was wearing a different number so that he wouldn't be like associated with his dad, which was
Smart.
fucking hilarious. Because his name is LeBron Jr. and LeBron is in the stands. So that's really awesome. But like I was wondering if she's like, I don't want to be in the shadow of my dad, or she's more like, I'm continuing a legacy of sports and I'm at some point gonna like you said, Kadeen, lean on it and get some crazy hair.
Let me just say this. She's made it abundantly clear she wants to make her own name, in sports.
Right.
So she is very
Exactly.
clear about that, even when she got drafted. And shout out Michelle, her mom, who she wants to give a lot of credit to. Okay, so even done research on the future GOAT of the U.S.
I'm
soccer.
impressed.
She credits Michelle a lot with her development in soccer as well. Dennis, of course, big part of the athleticism, big part of her life, but she is basically best friends with her mom. Like, there are actually some vlogs, which I was sort of running into. I was like, let me learn more about Trinity Rodman. There are a couple of vlogs of them like singing together and just like going shopping together. Like, they are so tight. They are so close. And I think she credits a lot of her success and love for sports and the game to her mom, Michelle. So shout out, Michelle. Thank you so much for giving us the future GOAT of U.S. soccer on the Washington Spirit. So again, Trinity Rodman scored in the 95th minute against Kansas City to put us up 2-1. She also gave the game tying assist to Ashley Sanchez. They're basically Batman and Robin, guys. So for those of you new to the Washington Spirit, we got Batman and Robin, Ashley Sanchez, Trinity Rodman. They take turns being Batman, take turns being Robin, but they are both stellar. They love each other. They rock the fur coats. Get on board. They're fun to be around. They are
I
fun.
got countdown to Amit got a Trinity Rodman tattoo on him. I mean, there's some worship happening right now. I get it. I'm excited for it too. I mean, we got stars in DC. I'm always loving it. Like, regardless if I never watch a soccer game, which is probably more than likely, I'll never watch one.
I'll take you to a game. I'll take you to.
All right, we'll do that. We'll do that. But
Let's do
but just from a genetic standpoint, I don't remember a guy, even as a kid, like watching basketball that showed more effort on the court than Dennis ever did. And if you have those sort of, if you can get a modicum of that, along with some sort of athletic ability, and like what you're saying, as far as her mom actually getting there and fueling it, that's an unstoppable force. I mean, that was always the thing with Dennis, is that it's like, geez, man, if he was a little bit taller, if he had a little more weight on him, he would have been an unstoppable force. But it was like he just focused and honed in on, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the absolute best at it. And I still don't think there was a better rebounder ever than Dennis Rodman. I mean, that's just hard to do.
No, that's totally fair. All right, so before we move on to the Euros, I just need some votes. I need to get this on the record. I have her as the best ever player in U.S. soccer history by the time her career is over.
Well, but okay, we're gonna need a measurable. Like, how do you decide that?
LC, it's the beautiful game. You just know. But trust
Who
me,
has the
goals,
title right now?
Who do you
the
have up there
assists.
now on it?
It would probably be so. There is a dispute. I think you can make the case for Mia Hamm. You can make the case for Abby Wambach. You can make the case for Carly Lloyd. She's still going. I think Trinity is going to make, or even Alex Morgan if she continues. But I would say that by the end of Trinity Rodman's career, there's not even going to be a debate. I think she's that good. She just turned 19. And the first few games, you could tell that she was figuring it out. Like, some defenders would kick her a little bit. Like, you know, she dominated in high school. She didn't play a college game because of COVID. Thank goodness. Otherwise, she would have been the number 1 pick. She was the number 2 pick overall. And once she got that sort of temper, that like mind of, okay, they're doing that to get in my head, she has taken over these games. She's absolutely taken over these games. And it's not just her ability to score. It's not just her ability to pass. It's when to pass. It's when to shoot. It's when to cut. That is something a lot of players lack. Very, very few people have that. She has it at age 19. She's only going to get better. She's, 7 games into her season, into her career right now? I think she's taken off. So I want final votes before we move on. LC, yes or no, GOAT. Are you with me?
I'm buying in. Sure. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay, Dot?
No. Here's the thing, is like I'm rooting for her, but anytime I hear somebody that like sure about something, I feel like they're in a cult or something. So I'm just naturally inclination to kind of push away just a little bit. I'm still watching, I'm still rooting, but yeah, just
Felt a little
7
bit
games
cultish.
in, you're ready to get the tattoo. I don't know.
Listen. I'm only going to do this for people.
I'm buying
I think are truly
Bitcoin right now.
special.
Like, I'm doing what.
Have you ever proposed on have you ever proposed on a first date, Amit? I'm just wondering. It seems so.
There was. That's a story for a different time. Oliver, what about you? Yes or no?
Yeah, I'm siding with Kadeen here. I love the enthusiasm and excitement on it, but selling me a little short. I don't think she'll be as good as you say she will. I think she's a tremendous athlete. I think where she is, seven games in, age 19, it's very impressive. But pump the brakes a little bit. Let's have this discussion in a couple of years.
Okay, sounds good. In a couple of years, it's already going to be like she's probably the best already. So anyway, that's the Trinity Rodman segment. That's the Washington Spirit. They're currently in 4th place in the NWSL, very tight in the standings. We'll get more to that in the State of the Union. Let's go across the pond and let's talk about some more soccer. This time, the Euros. It has been insane recently. Just yesterday, well, I guess at the time of this recording, yesterday, so Monday, there were 2 insane round of 16 games. First, we started with Spain winning 5-3 against Croatia. It took extra time to do it. It was 3-1 Spain with 15 minutes left. Croatia scores twice. Spain manages to put it away. Then you have tournament favorites France up 3-1 against Switzerland with 15 minutes left. Switzerland comes back. They win in penalties. And who would miss the only one? Star boy himself, Kylian Mbappe. Trinity Rodman, don't do that. Don't pull a Kylian Mbappe, get in your head too much. So don't listen to me too much.
Okay, but hold
Listen
on.
to some of these guys pump the brakes. Insane. Absolutely insane. Go ahead, Elsie.
Just before we get into the whole games, I got to say something for Mbappe. Because I have, as an Argentinian, gone to, like, our team has gone to plenty of finals. And, you know, we're like, oh, here's where the stars have to show up. And then our stars have the worst fucking game and we lose the finals every time. And so that happens. The difference with Mbappe is that he's already won a world championship. He's already won a World Cup. So that, I'm sorry, gives him a complete, just he can do whatever the fuck he wants. I don't give a shit if he misses every other PK in the rest of France history. They won a World Cup with him. In part because of him, he scored a good amount of the goals. He was the best offensive player for them. So I say he's got license to miss as many fucking Euro Cup. Who gives a shit? He won the World Cup. When anyone with Argentina wins a World Cup, I'll say the same about him. They can lose everything else, but it's fine. He loses this cup. I don't give a shit. He's still an idol. He won the World Cup for them. That does not bring him down in any certain level at all.
Just for listeners that may be new to this DC Sports podcast, something we failed to mention with LC is he is a very grumpy old man that likes his rocking chair on his porch and hates Lionel Messi, who does everything he can to get Argentina a title, and yet LC hates the guy. Oliver, it seems like you want to say something. What you got?
Yeah, I think that's a total bullshit argument by LC. Kylian Mbappe is probably top 3 to 5 in the world, and his job is to score goals.
You can't have a bad day?
A bad tournament. Did he even show up this tournament?
The whole tournament was awful.
God, Pogba
won a World Cup.
Mine, but Kylian Mbappe didn't even show up. And then he's a forward, if I'm not mistaken. His role is to score goals, if I'm not mistaken. One of the easiest goals to score is a penalty, and he gets his saved. With all the pressure on the line, he needs to do better. He should have put France on his back, and he failed miserably.
But
yeah,
he's won a World Cup.
Sure.
That's it.
Absolutely.
That's all. If I were French, that's all I need to ever love him. Like, I don't care what else he does. He's won a World Cup. That's it. That's enough. Dude, we have people in Argentina who are 65 right now. They won the World Cup in like 1986, and they are still milking that shit. Like, they are still on TV being like the authority on soccer.
Of course.
Like, it's forever.
It is hard.
Forever,
it is hard.
And it does not matter what you do.
It is hard to win a World Cup, but when we talk about Kylian Mbappe, this is the last little bit I'll say on it. Maybe Kadeen wants to chime in. The only thing I'm going to say is he's on a Messi Ronaldo track, right? Everyone has said age 18, 19, like, he's the guy. Like, look at him. You can just tell. Those that watch a lot of soccer, those that play a lot of soccer can tell you immediately, watching just 2 touches of his, this guy's a star. Like, he gets it. So for him to have such a bad tournament, like Oliver said, 0 goals, 0 assists as a forward playing on that France team with Benzema back in there, inexcusable. And he's 22 now, which means he's no longer just the starlet. He has arrived. And his arrival was winning the World Cup. Brilliant. Never going to be taken away from him. But that is a bad game he had. And he would keep holding his hamstring. Lost so much respect for him when he kept holding his hammy like, oh, I pulled it, and then was just running full speed again within a minute.
That was a little shitty.
I was like, dude, come on. Kadeem, what you got there?
If somebody's not watched a single second of the Euros, and I won't, I will say I did like where LC was coming from, just as a casual guy over here. You know, it's the problem with soccer, and the reason I was so for the Super League is
here we go.
Who fucking knows what tournament matters in what way? So it's like who gives a shit? Like, he misses this one. Okay, there's a World Cup, there's a Champions League, there's this, there's that. So it's like when you come to the Olympics and American basketball players, and you're like, man, fuck that shit. I'm gonna go chill on the beach. I don't give a shit about the Olympics. Pay me when the season starts. I'm like, is there a little bit of that in Mbappe? Like, who gives a shit, bro? It's the fucking Euros. World Cup status right here, bitch. It's like, come on.
I'll tell you, like in Argentina, I'm trying to bring it because you're right. Because like in professional American sports, there's like just one type of championship. Like there's very few international competitions. I guess they had the first CONCACAF league, but it's still soccer, so people still don't understand. But like in Argentina, and I think in a lot of countries, the national team, for teams who can actually win the World Cup, which is like maybe between 6 and 8, like winning the World Cup is like a lifetime forever thing that you will be like in immortality, like there will be statues of you. Any other cup is like great, but like we're not gonna like completely turn the world upside down. If Argentina wins the World Cup, like literally the country will go in fucking flames. I mean, it's in flames for
in a good way
right now, but like in a good way this time. And so it's the biggest, like I cannot even compare it to like an NBA championship. Like it is just so overwhelmingly, like people are obsessed with the World Cup in a way that like I have not seen people not even obsessed with the Super Bowl. And I mean that. I mean, people who have never cared about soccer are like, we need to win the World Cup. And it's like, do you even know the offside rule? So like for those teams, I think it's like the World Cup and then anything else, including the Euros, including like, and it's just nothing else. Nothing compares to it.
Well, I tell you, if Argentina ends up winning Copa America here, then we'll have this discussion again because they've been striving for that too, and we will. But there are other teams involved as well. So again, Spain won, Switzerland won. That's a matchup, and we got some other good ones too. So Belgium and Italy are going to be playing. I want to know what your thoughts are on that game, especially if De Bruyne and Hazard are both out. Oliver, I want your take. Who do you like in that matchup? You don't even need to get into specifics too much. Just a quick winner for me.
Yeah, so at the start of the Euros, I made a bet with my fiance, a little side bet. Gave her first 4 picks, and I had the remaining 2 teams. She knows next to nothing about soccer, but could list the countries in Europe. So she picked France, Italy, Croatia, and Spain. And so she picked 2 or 3 remaining. And I picked Belgium and England. And so I see England picked up the W today. But we have a little head-to-head elimination matchup coming up in this matchup that you just mentioned. I like Belgium. Okay.
And even without the bet, you like Belgium?
Even without the bet, yeah, absolutely. I believe that Lukaku is playing on a whole other level right now. And what Belgium's doing is just really impressive. So for such a small country, they seem to be dominant in soccer right now, and sticking with them.
I'm gonna go with Italy. I really like Chiesa. I really like the way that they play. It should be a really, really fun game though. Kadeen, Belgium or Italy? Just say whatever comes to mind.
Italy food better. Italy.
Great pick. LC, Belgium or Italy? You could use any rationale.
I actually haven't. I've watched a bunch of Euro games, but I haven't watched either of these 2 teams. Actually, I think maybe I watched like a half of Belgium. I do think that even with De Bruyne or who's the other one, Hazard, like they seem to be having like a golden generation type of moment, where like. This is too far of a comparison. I'm sorry to go back to my country, but like Argentina kind of had that with basketball, and like Manu Ginobili and Scola and like Nocioni. Like there was like, for some reason, there was like a generation of just like all of these players from the same country in like a team that did not expect to have that. So I would expect them to sort of be now everyone knows Belgium is good, but like unexpectedly good. So I'll go for Belgium.
Okay.
And give them the vote of confidence on that golden generation.
So it looks like we're split. I personally enjoy my rationale, and Kadeen's even more for Italy. But we will see what happens. Like, hey, Italy's got some great food. Belgium's got some great chocolates, though. So I mean, you could easily counter with that.
I stopped at Belgium on a train for like 45 minutes. That's as much as I got.
Yeah, best beer in the world in Belgium. Best beer in the world.
That's right. They do have good beer. They have good beer. But
fantastic
also.
beer.
the Saints of whatever the new Sopranos movie trailer came out. So in accordance with the Italian mob and what happened in Jersey on the Sopranos, I'm also going with Italy. They got it on lock, man. Come on.
I'm still not past Elsie's story of like I stopped in Belgium for 45 minutes, and that
It
was
didn't
the
impress
point
him.
of the story. That
I was somewhere else. I was in the Netherlands going to London by train, and we stopped in Belgium for 45 minutes. So I got to see 45 minutes of the train station.
If it was Italy, you would have stayed longer.
Oh yeah, probably. I would have done a little bit of, like we have a lot of Italian in Argentina.
All right. Well, anyway, we got some more picks to get to. Next one, Denmark, Czech Republic. Elsie, this time we're going to start with you.
Man, Denmark didn't they score 4 games in each of the last 2 games?
Yeah,
I mean,
they've been scoring a lot recently.
My favorite thing about like soccer, there was a coach that I liked a lot that whenever they lost, they asked him like, what did you lose? And he would say the other team scored more than me. So I'm gonna go with Denmark because like if the job is to score more than the other team and they're scoring a lot, like all right, do that.
Okay. Sounds good. Kadeen, your turn.
Denmark, the flag's better.
Okay, cool. I think you did some quick research there. Ollie.
Make it 3 for Denmark.
Okay, Denmark. I'm going to go Denmark. I think we just got ourselves a clean little sweep there. What else do we need to pick? We need to pick Spain, Switzerland. We still need to pick that. I'm picking
Spain.
I'm picking Spain. I just think they got a lot of firepower, and I think Switzerland are still riding the high, almost busted their load, so to speak, and they're still enjoying that. And I think they're going to get run over by Spain. So I've got Spain in that one. Ollie, what about you?
Spain's definitely has the name power, has the athletes. I think they get a little lazy at times. I know they like to control the ball. I think they get a little too caught up with the flair. Give me Switzerland. They fight hard. They are riding the high after the big victory. I think they're going to keep it going, and they'll pull off the second one.
Kadeen?
Switzerland. It's like the Denmark flag, but fatter. I like it.
I love that rationale.
Wait,
LC.
Speaking of flags, isn't Switzerland like one of the very few that has like legally a square flag, right? Like it's like
yeah, I'm looking at it. It's a square. That's fucking dope. That's
it's
cool,
like
man.
Unique. Yeah, it's like it's a thing.
It's a good
anyway,
flag.
I actually would say for Switzerland that like they clearly had a mental moral breakdown after they missed the PK and got scored on twice within I want to say 7 minutes, 10 minutes. Like it was like the worst 10 minutes of their life.
Yeah.
The PK and the 2 goals.
Okay, the PK and the 2 goals, 6 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So, but to come back from that is like the opposite, right? Like they show quite, and without a halftime in between for the coach to like give a pep talk. So it sounds like they did that. It feels like they did that by themselves. So I think it'll have to do with how well can they mentally prepare for this game and come out swinging. So I think on paper it would be Spain, but if Switzerland surprises us by pulling another very just tough game and giving it to Spain, I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm still gonna go with Spain in paper.
All right, I'm gonna go with Spain, and then the final matchup: is it coming home? England against Ukraine. England with a big victory just before this recording over Germany, 2-0. England or Ukraine? K-Dot, let's start with you this time. Who you got?
All right, Ukraine's colors, the blue and the yellow, are pretty legit as far as a color combo, but just to do it on top of each other is boring as shit. England has like the bizarro version of the Swedish flag, but they take the bars all the way to the ends. It's pretty legit, so I'm going with England.
Dude, it's like the opposite of Denmark's flag. It's just
right.
I was going to say it's an
opposite.
Inverted flag.
It's an inverted flag, but here it looks square on this. Is the English flag square? I didn't know this.
No.
It's pretty legit.
Oh man, Elsie, go ahead.
I thought England's game was so solid that they just won against Germany, which is hard to play solid against. They just didn't allow like a lot of building from Germany at all, and then they had a couple of chances and put them in. So I think England's tough to beat by a Ukrainian team right now.
Okay, Ollie, who you got?
As mentioned before, England was one of the 2 picks I had going into it. I'm sticking with them. Speaking of people balling out, Raheem Sterling has showed up for this tournament. He was a controversial pick to start, but he's really proven the manager that it was the right decision. I believe he scored in this last game and has a couple in the knockout round or the qualifying round as well. So Raheem Sterling, England, it's coming home.
All right, it's coming home. And for me, look, England, this is the most talented team they've had in years. And I think there is something called the Pep Guardiola effect. Wherever he goes, they start moving the ball a whole lot better. They got Phil Foden, they got Raheem Sterling, John Stones. They understand how to move the ball properly. Marcelo Bielsa managing leads helps with Calvin Phillips over there. Ben White, like the guys get it. But the history of England is too much to overcome. I'm going with the Ukraine. They are going to win that game, and it is going to be a shock, especially after such a big win. Maybe they also busted their proverbial load over Germany and just have nothing left in the tank. Kadeen, don't worry about it. Just embrace it. It's okay.
It's a lot of load you're talking about.
There were a lot of loads that were released in the Euros. The Europeans are very, very strange people. Let's talk back here in the United States about the NBA playoffs. It is now the conference finals, and we got two good ones, actually. It looked like we were going to get a sweep in the East, but Trae Young had something to say about that in game one, pouring in 48 points, but the Bucks have looked really, really solid since then. And then in the West, the Suns and Clippers. The Suns up 3-1, looked like they were going to close it out. Little gentleman's sweep. But nope, the Clippers had something to say about that. Paul George with 41 points in game 5. He's maddeningly inconsistent, but he finds ways to get it done at the same time. So let's begin with the West. K-Dot, do you think the Suns still have what it takes to win this series, or do you think the Clippers are actually going to turn this around here?
I think this goes to 7. Now, it feels like it's just shaping up that way. I still have the Suns pulling this thing off. I just think without Kawhi there, Ty Lue is doing a hell of a job. And I want people to actually recognize what he's doing and how the adjustments that he's been making throughout these playoffs. He's doing what Doc Rivers is incapable of doing, which is probably the biggest part of it. But Paul George actually also, we wouldn't say he's ascending. He is still too inconsistent. But when Paul's running that team without Kawhi and that lack of energy that Kawhi kind of has with the guys in the locker room, I think Paul George is coming off as less corny to some of these guys. Like the way that they look at him, the way they treat him, it's like they believe in this guy again. And to me, that speaks to something huge. And I when it comes to the playoffs, I'm all about momentum and feelings and energy. I think it has a lot to do with the way these teams operate. And I just still think if I'm looking overall, there's no more energy what the Phoenix Suns are bringing to anything. So regardless of how much LA does, Phoenix is a freight train. I mean, we're talking about they beating up fans in the stands, Suns in 4. Devin Booker is fully here. Even with you had to give him a game to get the mask thing right? Like there's certain aspects of just what I'm seeing for Phoenix that I don't know. I think if they make it to the finals, they're going to be hard to beat, and I do think they're going to get it done against LA. I just think LA is just doing what they can to claw and scratch it, making something happen. I think it's a lot to do with whatever Tyler is doing. So,
yeah, okay. So you think it's going 7, and do you think that the Clippers actually fully turn it around, or you just want to say for right now it goes 7?
I think for right now, I think that Paul George can ride this wave, maybe win another game, and then we're going to get to a place where I just think Phoenix has too much to overcome. Without them having Kawhi on that LA team, I think they're inferior. I just do. I think with Chris Paul being healthy in a playoff, I think with Devin Booker being the guy he is, I think Ayton, that fucking alley-oop, just put him in this whole – Ayton's got swag now. Like, it's just – this team just feels like right now a team of destiny.
Yeah, no, that's really fair. And actually, I'm just going to pop up with the dollar bet standings over here real quick because that was the Valley-oop swung things quickly. Matt was about to get to +5. Instead, he goes 0-1 on the week. Oliver at the top at 1-0. The reason he wins the tiebreaker over LC with a 1-0 overall record is because he made the most recent bet. So Oliver is in first place with
completely
LC.
Arbitrary.
In second place, no comment there. And I also managed to nab a 1-0 record last week as well. LC, what are your thoughts on the Suns-Clippers series? And I also want your take on Paul George going from the number 2 option to the number 1 and seemingly thriving in it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what Karim said on in terms of like momentum. I do think like playoffs are for me, the biggest demonstration of momentum was the 2016 finals with the Cavs coming back 3-1 from Columbus. Like that looked like an unbeatable team. Like, of course they're gonna win, and like momentum switch, and then we're like, are they gonna win? And then they just didn't. And so I think that with playoffs it happens a lot like that. With Paul George, it's really interesting because like he's not the, like I think Karim has said before, like the rah guy, right? Like he's not like the most like, I don't know, when you see Kawhi and Paul George, they're not like the most boisterous leaders that are just like commanding a team, the whole time. Especially Kawhi is like a totally different personality. So I think for him, this is like the opportunity to say like, okay, it's not like, like there's no doubt now that you have to be the number one guy, right? Like your team's down 3-1, the quote unquote start of the team is injured. Like you have no other option but to be the guy for this moment. And so I think he embraced that. And we always knew he had the talent to do that, right? Like it was never a doubt that he could do that. And so I think for him to do it, it's just a demonstration that he can be the number one guy. I think that this will be great for him even in the long term. But I also do think that with Karim having 2 more games left, that the overall better team will make it through, which I think is still the Suns. And so I think that, yes, he had this one amazing game. Maybe he can pull it off one more time. I don't know if he can do it twice, and I don't know if he can do it in a game 7 again. So I would go with the Suns still.
Okay, going with the Suns. And we may have lost Oliver. Oliver, scream if you're on right now.
Well, unmute then scream.
Yeah, we'll unmute first and then scream. So we may have some internet issues here with Oliver, unfortunately. So I'm going to go ahead and make my pick as well. I'm going Suns. I do think it is scary, though. I think this Clippers team, I also think it's going 7. I do think that they're going to win game 6, and I think the Suns are going to squeak out a game 7, and it is going to be frightening for all those fans. But I tell you what, this Clippers team, a very pleasant surprise. I think as soon as it was announced Kawhi Leonard was out with an ACL injury, everyone wrote him off. I was like, my Jazz pick looks super safe. I think it's going to be totally fine. They're losing their leader. I know about playoff P, pandemic P, whatever you want to call Paul George, but he stepped up. The rest of the role players stepped up. Reggie Jackson has been a revelation for them. I do think the Suns will squeak by. Now, let's move over to the Eastern Conference.
Can I push back just a little bit?
Yes, absolutely.
I will say I never gave up necessarily on the Clippers because I still think if I'm looking at the teams in the playoffs right now, the second best player still playing, I think, is Paul George behind Giannis. Paul George is still a hell of a player. I think that what has happened recently with what happened, especially in the bubble, which I don't think you could take a lot of what happened in the bubble and use it as gospel on anything. Same way I don't think a lot of this year can use as gospel to really say for anything. But when it comes to that, Paul George wants to be a rah guy. It's Kawhi's team. Kawhi's not an alpha. And, I don't believe in the whole alpha male thing. If you're going with it, he's not an alpha. Yeah. But you still defer to Kawhi. Kawhi's not a guy to defer to. When Paul George tries to be rah on a Kawhi team, he looks corny as shit. When Kawhi is just sitting back, and you even see the commentators making fun of Kawhi. Oh, Kawhi, he's having a ball over there, and you just look like he's waiting in the DMV, just bored with life. It's just now some of these young guys are looking around Paul, and I don't think they know whether or not he's corny or not. It's just working. So it's just like this is kind of where it is for them. Like I think the Clippers are a damn good team. I think Ty Lue is the best coach still coaching.
I think you're right. I think he probably is the best remaining coach in the NBA playoffs at this point. And if we looked at the East, and we'll get there in a moment because I do like the point you just made. You look at Coach Bud, and like game 1, he got totally outcoached. And that resulted in all of a sudden, are the Hawks going to be winning this series all because of coaching? And so that is very important. Ty Lue has been awesome. I like the idea that maybe the personality of the team changed when Kawhi stepped off the floor. And all of a sudden,
100%.
The Clippers could sort of reinvent themselves on the fly. And Paul George needed to step up in a leadership role. And then all of a sudden, Terrence Mann becomes the man. You
can see it in that game. The game, you could see that it was, all right, this is not Kawhi. We're not following Kawhi's personality here. Like, you even see when Kawhi's in the zone, when he was playing well, it's the team saying, leave him alone. Don't even sit next to him. Don't talk to him. Let him be in his own. He's not a dude who infects everybody else with him on a hot streak. They just let him cook. Get out of the way and let him cook. Well, Paul George, it's like everybody's starting to feel it. And this is just the sort of vibe you got. And there are a lot of athletes that are like that. The ones that like, I'm in a zone, don't disrupt me from my zone. Compared to the guys that are just like, yo, we're having fun now. Let's go have fun. Kobe was like that. Kobe, leave me alone. I'm in the zone, right? Just don't talk to me. I'm here now. And then you got other dudes that are just like, no, we're having what? LeBron's having fun. When LeBron's having fun, it's the most fun to see, and it's usually when he's the easiest that he's playing. It's just certain guys are built different ways.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Now, Oliver, welcome back. Your thoughts on the Suns-Clippers series? Kadeen and I both have it going 7. LC, I don't know if he specified if it's going 7, but he does feel the Suns are strong enough to close this out. LC, do you think it goes 7, or do you think it goes
I don't know. I just know the Suns are taking it.
He knows the Suns are taking it. I think we're all picking Suns. Kadeen's on the fence right now. Oliver, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen from Paul George is, been truly amazing to watch. What we've seen from the Clippers, being comfortable going down 0-2 in every series and somehow coming back and winning those series has been pretty impressive. I don't think they can go to the well 1 or 2 more times because I think they're just, playing with fire. Speaking of fire, I think the Suns will close them out. It very well may go 7. If it goes to 7 and it's in Phoenix, that will be rocking. I just don't see the Clippers winning 2 more games, beating these Suns. So
Okay.
I think the Suns are going to take it. Wouldn't be surprised if it does go 7, though.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think we're all in general agreement. The Suns will take care of business, but it may be in 7 games instead of just 6. And bravo to the Clippers for, changing on the fly, losing their star player, changing that personality, and making a real run at this thing. Now let's shift to the East real quick, and then we'll move on to our theoretical question here. But in the East, the Bucks are up 2-1, and Game 4 is happening at the time of this recording. The question is, I first want to begin with Trae Young and the referee. Did you think that there was any fault for the referee, or do you think it was just an unfortunate situation? Ollie, I want to start with you here.
I mean, look, you've got 3 refs, you've got additional bodies on the floor. I think it was an unfortunate situation. I don't think there was any intent. Certainly don't think you can blame the ref too much for what happened. I hope Trae is good. He's an amazing young player to watch. He certainly makes the playoffs more interesting, especially this series. But I can't blame the ref for this. And quite honestly, I think the Bucks are just too much to handle for the Hawks. So, I think Milwaukee will take this one and make quick work of it.
Do you, when you say quick work, do you think Milwaukee in 5, Milwaukee in 6? What do you think? 5. Okay. Okay. No more wins for the Atlanta Hawks. Does anybody else think the ref was somehow at fault? This is more for people in Atlanta that stumbled on this video because it was just a freak play. It's not like the ref was like, oh, fuck Trae Young.
I think if you're an Atlanta fan and you want to yell at somebody, I think we talked a little bit about how, like, in the NBA, you're too close to the players. And, like, if you think about it, the ref has no other place to be. Like, he can't be outside because then he'll hit the bench or a fan, for that matter. And so, like, if you want to yell at somebody, I think it's the idea that the NBA has, 4 feet between the fans and the players, and therefore there's no room for refs or for anybody else that's not playing to be in there. That would be the people to yell at, because the ref is literally, he's standing there. Like, he's like an immobile agent. He's doing nothing, and he could just get stepped on. And so I think it's just a matter of there's no room for the refs, like, to go other than, like, inside the court, and that may be more have to do with the NBA than with the ref positioning.
I agree wholeheartedly. They are setting people up to fail. I think that it's one of those things. It's an unfortunate accident. I would never blame the ref necessarily. I do want refs to get the hell out of the way better than they usually do in, like, all sports typically. But it especially annoys me in the NFL. When you got, like, crossing routes and stuff, I just think it's terrible. But I just haven't we reached a point where you could have just a headquarters somewhere in New York, enough cameras watching the game, and they just ref the game with all the angles and get it right 100% of the time from back at fucking somewhere. Like, I don't get it anymore. Like, then we don't even have to worry about the interaction between the players and the refs for stupid text. Like, just, hey, there's the godly basketball voice saying, you stepped out of bounds. There's a whistle that plays overhead. It's whatever it is. So,
it's just like a foul.
That's it. I don't think that's a terrible idea. Like, I think the technology exists to do that. We shouldn't be in situations where this shit happens. I've been saying it. With basketball, I'm still surprised more people don't get tripped up or slip on nachos or something when they're playing basketball games. To me, it's ridiculous that it has happened more.
Kadeen, I'll push back on that a little bit. I think we certainly are there from a technology standpoint, right? But I think there's something, as a former player, LC, Amit, I know you both played soccer and probably other sports as well. There's the human element to it, right? So you're playing these games, certain referees or umpires. I was a baseball player, and so I knew certain umpires had, a wider strike zone or a smaller strike zone. And you get to know these little pitches within each referee or umpire. You can get away with certain things. I think that human element's interesting, and I wouldn't want to see that go away.
I'm not going to disagree with you that it's interesting. I just think it's unnecessary. And I think that I hate any time that we have, like, you're not watching the sport to see the interaction they have with a fucking ref or what it is that they're gleaning from the ref. I want to see the best team or the best athlete perform to the maximum of their abilities within the confines and the rule of a game and then determine an outcome. And to me, it's like, the idea of the human element just speaks to this really, really old school way of thinking. You hear it more with baseball people than probably anybody else as far as just the way that the game changes. It's the same with the NFL. Like, if they could just put microchips in the goddamn football so we know this is what it is and let them play the game. Just play the game. Like, that's what I want to see. I want to see you at the best of your abilities doing what it is you can without having to worry about the politics of this guy or what this guy's looking at or, I hope we get this dude for this game because he's going to call it like this. Get rid of that variable. I just want to see the sport get played to the best of its ability.
Yeah, but I think you're going to have situations in basketball where you can call a foul on just about every damn near play. And in football, you certainly could call holding on every play. And I think you're going to have a drawn-out game with a whistle beam from the sky or whatever happening.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It's not a computer, right? I'm not saying that we're going to develop an AI that tells us on a basketball court when a foul occurs. There's still a human element to it in the sense that there's somebody in New York or wherever it is at headquarters that are still doing this. The same way in the NFL when they go and they talk to the guy when the guy puts something, they're talking to another person, but they can make a more nuanced decision, or they don't have to be beholden on, hey, this guy calls fouls a certain way. We can look at it holistically as a league and say, this is the way we want to call games, and this is the way that we want to go about doing things. And I just think it's, I don't know. I get where you're coming from. I just think that there's a middle ground that doesn't include any scenario in which a player accidentally steps on a referee. It could potentially be out of a fucking game where that shouldn't happen.
Right, and this is potentially series changing, and it was unfortunate. But there are merits to both arguments because it's not going to be perfect. The entire science of a foul and refereeing is inexact, almost by definition. There's plenty of gray area, so I completely get it. I personally enjoy the interactions. And, as a fan, if I need to blame somebody, I'm blaming the referee. So, like, it's just fun to have him there or her there to be like, you know what? If he or she wasn't there, we're winning that game, which as a DC sports fan, you get used to saying a whole lot. But real quick, I want predictions. I already got Oliver's over there. LC, Bucks or Hawks, and in how many games?
Bucks and 5 would go.
Okay, Bucks and 5. K-Dot?
I don't know, because Mike Budenholzer, Buds, whatever the fuck you want to call him, is the most annoying goddamn coach in the NBA. I hate his guts. I don't like what they do with that team. I feel as though he has amnesia after every fucking game. I think Giannis might suffer from the same thing too. And if you don't have a coach that takes Giannis by the neck and say, if you shoot another 3, I'm going to throw your ass through something. He shot 7 threes last game. Don't shoot threes, Giannis. Reggie, every time that Reggie Miller's doing a game, and you hear Reggie say, and if I was there with Giannis, every time he takes, he's like, you want to know why you were so wide open, guy? Because no one gives a shit about you doing what it is you're doing. Giannis still has the ability to be the most dominant big man we've seen since Shaq. Use him that way. It's unstoppable. They could have swept this Atlanta team. They could go on to coast for a championship if they just remember the formula. But every time they get into this bullshit, letting Drew Holiday play 10 feet off a tray so the stupid floaters keep going up, and having Giannis shoot up from 3 when he should be driving into the paint where he's going to draw the double team, and they got enough shooters to kick the ball out if you don't drive it down somebody's throat. Bud, if you don't win this series, I wish nothing but the worst things for you. Like, this is so ridiculous. They should win this. I just have no faith in Bud. But look, I want to say Milwaukee just takes care of this, just cleans it up. I don't know. I do not trust the guy helming at the helm.
All right, so we got 2 Bucks and 5. We got 1 I don't know. I'm gonna go Bucks and 6. I was gonna go 5, but I'll go 6 just for K-Dot's sake over there.
I don't want him to win one. That's kind of the thing. I think this is bad for the league if he wins one.
Oh.
This is terrible.
I think there's a very real shot they do. Anyway, let's get on to our final topic for the
They
day.
could have had Rick Carlisle. No,
In the middle of the playoffs, and we're running up against time here. So I want Oliver to go first. The question is, and I hope you guys thought about it a little bit, what is the one sport you feel you could go pro in today? Oliver, let's start with you.
Whew. Not like I was back in my late teens, early 20s. So that means the sport has to require less running, less pure strength, and probably overall endurance. So I'm going to go with billiards.
Oh,
If you consider that a sport,
sure. We'll count it.
Something you improve on with age and when you drink more, at least in my sake. So I do believe I could hold my own playing some pool.
Okay. Billy, I really like that call. Billiards. K-Dot, what about you?
It's the sport that I've always wanted to do. Because nothing's changed, and I think I've gotten better. Stock car racing, baby. I can do it. We've already determined on the road trip thing. I got the road thing on lock. You're talking to the roadmaster right here, gentlemen. And to know that I could do it and do it for speed. You're talking to my girlfriend right there. When Motley Crue Kickstart My Heart comes on the radio, you better believe I'm already in a fucking NASCAR race, at least in this head. Just give me the prize money and let me go rubbing his racing. I can't wait. Sign me up tomorrow.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Elsie, what you got?
Well, I agree with Oliver. All physical capabilities have to be diminished in this sport for us to succeed at this age. I would need to go back to when I was 15. I used to do archery, so maybe I could pull some of that back in, and maybe I could try that. You do need some strong arms, but we can still do that. Like, there's not a lot of running involved in archery, actually not. So I could do that. I would love if I could say I could go pro in chess, but that's not going to happen. I'm not that good. So it's chess archery maybe. And it's
you could burn.
Sport, so.
You could burn 6,000 calories playing chess. Apparently,
Google it.
I do not believe that. And then I'm going to finish up here, and hopefully some of my teammates are watching this. I think I've been playing pretty fucking well recently, so I'm going to go ahead and say soccer, and say if I came on off the bench to kill a game. Right? 15, 20 minutes left. I can possess that ball. No problem. I can dictate it. Easy.
Well,
Happy to help out. Put me on the lowest ranked team in the MLS. Come off the bench for 15, 20 minutes. Maybe go
That's
to
your in.
Estonian League or something like that. I'll put some film together.
Because of how stupid soccer is, and there's teams all over professionally, the bar is so low.
I think some beer league team in England that suddenly just sort of rose up. There I am. I'm ready to roll. Sign me up.
Okay, actually, I do think, not as a player, but I would love to referee rugby games. I think that's something that I would like to get in, and at this age you can totally get in and climb the ratings and become an actual professional referee. Not that I will make it my main career, but it's fine. You don't have to you're not tackling anybody. You may get tackled sometimes, but you're not tackling anybody. So that's something that I could do.
Okay,
just keep an eye.
I like that. And the sport I would pick if I didn't pick soccer, because obviously it's just my favorite sport in the world, ping pong. I think if I actually practiced with the amount of time that the pros do, I think I would get smoked, but I still think I could win a point or two.
I mean,
if I
yeah,
practiced a whole
we're
lot.
assuming here it would be like everyone.
you're getting
like,
smoked
you
no
quit
matter
your
what.
job.
I mean,
right?
that's
You quit your job, you practice every day, and then you get into one professional tournament. That's it.
I've
Not
played
the
with some
preps.
ping pong people. There's
They're
zero chance.
good.
I'm
They're
never
good.
ever gonna be able to compete with those guys.
I
Ever.
mean, listen, I don't know. Maybe I just got elite confidence. And it's what you need if you're going to turn pro today.
No,
And
what
that
you
was
have
the
is
question.
you have a low bar on it. I mean, if you're going to turn pro and hope to just get 1 or 2 points out of a ping pong match, that's
He
I'm
never
not
said be
hoping
good.
to
He
get
never
1 or
said be
2. I'm
good.
hoping to get 21. I think I'll probably get 1 or 2. So while being unrealistic, still trying to be realistic, trying to figure that whole balance out. But we are going to now wrap up and conclude with the State of the Union, your DC Sports Wraparound coverage segment. Elsie, why don't we begin with Old Glory this time? How'd they do?
We should not start with that because I have not looked at it.
All right. Well, I guess we don't know how they did.
I'll tell you by the end of your State of the Union.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So we'll maybe come back to you. K-Dot, I saw Tanya Snyder was named a CEO, co-CEO of the
That's
Washington
the
football
news.
team. What else is there, if anything?
That's the news. That's literally the only real thing that's coming out of Ashburn right now. I mean, the guys are on break between minicamp, training camp, so there's not a whole lot of news. Nothing's happening as far as any free agents or any visits or anything that we can really concerned about. But the Tanya Snyder becoming the co-CEO along with Dan Snyder of the team is a fairly big deal, just depending on how it is you look at it. I mean, I'm just going to call it what it is. It feels very much like a publicity stunt, but I don't want to diminish Tanya Snyder. It's just that Dan has not had any sort of reserve of goodwill. So it's hard to be attached to him and actually feel as though anything's on the up and up, especially when you read the Wall Street Journal article. There's some few problematic things you could just tell maybe he's getting coached along and he doesn't necessarily buy into it all the way. But I have a lot of faith in Jason Wright and the rest of the guys that are in the front office that hopefully they can just keep his ass out of trouble and keep things on the up and up in Washington.
Okay, so that seems to be the main news, and I cannot wait to do the Taylor Heineke versus Ryan Fitzpatrick quarterback battle episode of District Divided, because that is going to be a blast. But I want Matt there for that so that he can roll his eyes a few times and we can roast him. So now I'm going to burn through the final few sports here for your State of the Union. Once again, your DC Sports Wraparound coverage segment, beginning with the Washington Nationals, and the good times keep on rolling for them. They swept the Phillies last week, then they split with the Marlins, and then beat the New York Mets, and we are now in second place in the NL East, 3 games back of said New York Mets for the division lead. And Kyle Schwarber, 14 home runs in the last 17 games, 11 home runs in his last 9, tying an MLB record. They need to drug test the guy. I hope they don't. He's on fire right now. Unbelievable form from Kyle Schwarber. We go as he goes. Up next, the Tampa Bay Rays for a couple games, then the Dodgers through the 4th of July. All of those are at home. And then we begin next week with a road trip to play the San Diego Padres, also known as the San Diego Tatises. All games can be seen on the Mid-Atlantic Sports Network. Now, the Washington Spirit, as mentioned, they beat Kansas City 2-1 on Saturday with goals from Ashley Sanchez and future GOAT of U.S. soccer, Trinity Rodman, in stoppage time. The Spirit are now in 4th place in the NWSL, and the standings are very tight. So you could see a whole lot of movement as the season goes on, but they're in a pretty comfortable spot right now. Up next, at home against the Chicago Red Stars on Friday at 7:30 p.m. The game can be seen on Twitch. So once again, on Twitch, Washington Mystics, we beat the league's best Seattle Storm. They were 12-2. We are back, except we lost 2 games right after that. So, you know, when I was talking about busting your load, we kind of did that with the Seattle Storm, and then we lose to the LA Sparks and Dallas Wings back-to-back. Now in 9th place in the WNBA. We were like 5th, dropped to 9th, with plenty of action still to come. Up next, at home against the Connecticut Sun, a.k.a. Pro Terps at the time of this recording, and then Saturday at the New York Liberty at 1 p.m. That game can be seen on the CBS Sports Network. Finally, DC United, a heartbreaking 2-1 loss, with the final goal for New York City FC being scored on our corner kick. They counter and score in stoppage time, basically the last kick of the ball. So the Spirit win in stoppage time, and DC United lose in stoppage time. Give and take. Bummer, but it is what it is. Nigel Roberta scored our only goal of the game. We now sit in 8th place in the Eastern Conference. Up next, at home against Toronto FC at 5:30 p.m., this Saturday. Game can be streamed on DCUnited.com and should be on NBC Sports Washington as well. That's going to conclude it on my end. LC, Old Glory update. Do you have it?
I do, with a complaint attached, which we already complained about before. And by we, I think I mean I. The Old Glory website does not update the results like days after the game happened. This game happened Saturday. We are recording on Tuesday, and they still don't have the result there. I have to go to the Major League of Rugby website. Like, come on, guys. I mean, I know you played away, but like, news travel fast. You should know how the game went by now.
It's 2021.
They played in Atlanta. They lost 32-12.
That's why they didn't post it.
And that's, they're just ashamed of it. And while you're changing this, Mr. or Mrs. Graphic Designer, please also flip the schedule. So you have the like most recent games at the top. Because now I go to the schedule and get March games, and then I got to scroll all the way down. Like, no, of course, if I click on the schedule, I want to see them, like the games that are coming, not the games that happen in March. So that's my complaint. The next game, however, which I found after scrolling, is on Sunday, July 4th, also known as the 4th of July. And I guess they're playing on a holiday. And they'll be playing against the Arrows, who are from Houston, Texas. And they'll be playing at Houston, Texas. So it may take even longer to get the news because last game was in Atlanta, and that is closer. So maybe by Thursday, we may have the result on the website.
Playing the Houston Arrows on the 4th of July. Thank you for the update, LC. This is District Divided, a DC sports podcast where we just basically say whatever we want to. I'm Amit Singh. That's LC. That's K. That's Oliver guesting for the second week in a row. Once again, Matt and Spencer were out this week. I think Spencer's back next week. I think Matt's still on vacation, which means we'll just get plenty of roast time for him. If you enjoyed the podcast, share it with some friends, like the video. And if you didn't, well, then... hope you enjoy your next Wednesday at 3 p.m. doing something else. Anyway, take it easy, guys. Have a good one. And happy 4th of July to all of you. And hope you have a very fun celebration. Lots of food, lots of drinks. Take it easy, everybody. Peace.